Hi, I'm Paul Matthews, Assistant Public Works Manager for the City of Ann Arbor. Today we have a presentation titled API Automagic, an Excel to Cityworks story of time savings. And this story is about how Dave Wilburn, a senior application specialist, was able to transform a long-standing process that caused several issues at the City of Ann Arbor. Today, our agenda. What is Ann Arbor? The problem and opportunity, the solution, and the project review. Ann Arbor is located in southeast Michigan. Ann Arbor is 27 square miles, has 120,000 residents who are active and vocal, 46,000 households. We're home to the University of Michigan, a Big Ten school with 43,700 students, and they employ 750 people. Ann Arbor frequently receives several accolades and awards. They were awarded 2020 Top 100 Best Places to Live, Top 10 Safest Cities in Michigan, Most Educated City in America, 10 Best Places to Live if you work from home, Best Places to Visit in Michigan, and 11 Best Cities to Retire in the U.S., to name a few. All of these awards show that this is a great place to live and work. Ann Arbor Public Works consists of 6 work areas: forestry, streets maintenance, sanitary sewer, stormwater, water distribution, and solid waste collections. Cityworks is used very heavily at the City of Ann Arbor. All work and costs are captured down to the asset. These records are used as our official backup for the financial system, and equipment time is integrated for some of our work areas. Winters in southeast Michigan average 53 days of snow, totaling 58 inches. In our snow response, we have major plow and salt routes that are treated to bare pavement for a total of 840 lane miles. In addition, our intersections, hills, and curves on local roads are salted, and all streets are plowed when the snow totals reach 4 inches or at management's discretion. Capturing the costs can be challenging. Ann Arbor has 8 plow and salt routes that cover the most heavily used roads. These are called our majors. There are 5 different GL accounts that are represented in Ann Arbor's major plow salt routes. We have major roads, local roads, DDA, which is our Downtown Development Association, Business Route I-94, and Business Route M23 that are MDOT trunk line highways owned by the state of Michigan that the City of Ann Arbor is contracted to maintain. Each major route has 2 to 4 road types or GL accounts within them. Costs must be calculated by road type GL account, and that is based on the percentage of the number of lane miles of each type within each route. We have 4 different employee rates that might apply, and time must be rounded to the nearest 15 minutes in order to have our payroll system accept the time. We have regular time, overtime, compensation time, or call-out time available to our staff. Our equipment costs include trucks, spreaders, and plow blades, and depending on when the truck was purchased, it could be a package or each one could have to be charged out separately. In addition, our salt is tracked by the pound. A basic spreadsheet was created to perform the math required to provide the labor, equipment, and material across our funding sources by the percent of route lane miles. The spreadsheet was only partially formatted into tables, and there was no data validation. As you can see below, it performed all the calculations that were necessary and would just give you the number that you needed to put into our Cityworks system. There was no rounding in this, so we frequently had to do the rounding ourselves to get it to the 15 minutes that our payroll system required, and there were no locations to put multiple names. So it was just if you needed 2 drivers, we just put 2 on one line, and then we would duplicate the entries into Cityworks. The way that we always did this created several problems for us. Plowing is a dynamic event that often requires tracking 40+ drivers per shift and their equipment, with them starting and stopping at different times and over long periods of time. And by long periods of time, I mean 2 to 3 days, depending on how long the snow event lasted, by the time we get finished with everything, including major and local roads. All of our data, as I said before, also has to be entered into Cityworks. Our supervisors are responsible for entering labor, material, and equipment used during a snow event. Multiple staff, multiple accounts per route, multiple time codes, multiple equipment entries, and multiple salt entries on a single work order can easily equal several hundred records. And as you know, each record could be several clicks just to get it put into Cityworks. Equipment time is integrated into the financial system in Ann Arbor, in the streets department, and so this required that those work orders be closed. Payroll is submitted using a report that we run out of Cityworks after all the data is entered. Pay periods end on Saturday nights at midnight, and payroll is due by 10 a.m. on Monday morning. So this would require our supervisor get all of the time and all of the entries put into the Cityworks work orders so that we could run this report out of Cityworks and then get it to our timekeepers to enter into our payroll system by 10 a.m. on Monday morning. The amount of data entry that was necessary sometimes would make us late by the time payroll came around at 10 a.m. This is an example of the data entry required to input time for an employee that worked on two different plow routes, 1A and 1B. A portion of their time was spent on regular time and a portion was at the overtime rate. And so you can see just how many entries we would have to make just to input their time. And then we would also have to put their salt usage and their equipment time into the system. The level of detail that we capture during our snow events is tremendous and it's great. It's great data for us to have, but it was creating a nightmare for our supervisors and it consumed a lot of their time. We just kept thinking it's too bad we can't import the data that we type into the spreadsheet directly into Cityworks work order. And now I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Dave Wilburn, who's going to talk about the solution.
Thanks, Paul. What if we could pull all of that spreadsheet data directly into Cityworks? What would that look like? The solution to our problem is a little API Automagic. We're going to integrate the Excel spreadsheet into Cityworks using the work order extended API that also doesn't require any additional work by our staff. To make this project successful, we feel like we need to import all the equipment, labor, and material into the work order, attach the cost to the specific route asset, while breaking out the cost by percentage as determined by lane miles of the specific road type and assigned to the appropriate GLs. Also, these work orders need to be completed and available in a timely manner. When a storm event hits, the supervisor makes a copy of the template spreadsheet and enters in all the specific data for that event. When the spreadsheet is completed, it's saved off into a monitored folder. The integration job runs every 10 minutes and looks for a new spreadsheet in the monitored folder. If it finds one, the integration runs and creates a work order and populates the information. The integration also creates an archive of the spreadsheet. When the integration is completed, the supervisor then reviews the work and closes the work order. A second integration takes the equipment time and automatically moves it off to our fleet management system. Finally, a standard payroll report is sent to finance. There are several keys to the success of this integration. The first is to develop a standardized spreadsheet that's saved in one location for everybody to use. The second is to create as many data validations and automations for as many fields in this spreadsheet as possible. These include coded values for staff and equipment that also have lookups to the Cityworks IDs, validation on the dates, setting specific ranges for numeric data, another lookup for the spreaders based on truck value, and not allowing entry into any fields other than fields that are going to be used for data. Basically, lock it down and protect it. We also needed to make all the calculations based on the percentage of lane miles of any specific road type. Lastly, is to develop the integration. One work order for all routes, and the integration would create and populate the work order. Next, I'd like to take a few minutes to take a look at the spreadsheet that we've created. The spreadsheet consists of 4 parts. This part is the general information section. It houses information about the event, who created it, and the appropriate dates. We have a couple validations in this section, one for the supervisors and one to make sure that any dates put in are for the current snow plowing season. The second part is the detailed information section. This is the part of the spreadsheet that the supervisor would use to enter in the specifics of the snow event. Down the left-hand side are various routes. Across the top, the supervisor would enter the driver, the type of time used, the truck, and any material. If we look at Route 1A, we can better see how the values are entered and some of the validations that are in place. We have drop downs for the driver, the truck, and the plow. We have a lookup for the spreader. We have numeric ranges for the other fields, as well as some error messaging if the numbers or values are out of range. The third part of the spreadsheet is the calculations section. This is the part of the spreadsheet that takes the time and materials and breaks it out by the percent of the road type within a specific route. If we look at Route 1A, we see that Dan Latimer has had his time broken out into 3 different types: major, local, and DDA. Similarly, the truck and spreader that he used is also broken out into major, local, and DDA. If we look at the salt quantities, those also are broken out by those 3 types. The fourth and final part of the spreadsheet is the domains and supporting information section. This is the part of the spreadsheet that houses all the information that we use to support the data validation. To this point, we've talked a lot about the spreadsheet. Now let's take a look at what it looks like in Cityworks. Before we jump into Cityworks, let's take a look at some of the integration details. We used PowerShell scripting language augmented with C#. We're using Windows Task Manager to schedule the integration, and that runs every 10 minutes. The integration runs what we call a completed folder. If there's a new spreadsheet in that folder, then the integration runs. And after it's run, the integration also creates an archive of the spreadsheet and puts that into the archive folder. Basically, the integration looks down through the driver column to see if there are any values there. If it finds values in the driver column, it then works across to all the other cells and determines if there are any cells that need to be imported into the work order. With the integration run, we have our newly created plow salt work order. If we look at several of the sections in a little more detail, we see that in the work order panel, we have our general information, which includes who initiated the work order, as well as the start and finish dates of the work order. Down in the details section, we have all of our cost information. And in the assets section, we have all of our assets so that we can attach the specific cost to each one of those routes. Next, let's take a look at the more detailed cost information. In looking at the labor, we can see that Dan Latimer from Route 1A had those 6 entries, and we can see those 6 entries here, 3 for overtime and 3 for his call out. Both applied to the specific Route 1A and also broken out by the specific GL. Similarly, we have both the pieces of equipment that he used broken out by the GL and attached to Route 1A. And finally, we have our salt that he used broken out by the 3 different types and attached to Route 1A. If we look at the work order overall, we see that there would be 63 entries for equipment, 64 entries for labor, and 37 entries for material. Our integration takes hours of data entry and turns it into minutes. Next, I'd like to pass it back to Paul so that he can conclude our presentation.
Well, what were the results of all of this effort by Dave and some of his colleagues? This effort has reduced expenses and eliminated hundreds of hours of staff time necessary to input the data over the course of a season. It also eliminated a lot of frustration that the staff had in entering that data. Our data is definitely more accurate, and our source data has data validation built into it. We have more accurate data in Cityworks because we've eliminated the hand entry of hundreds of records. And we have faster access to most of our summary reports. The first solution was so successful that we were immediately wanting some additional integrations created. Dave went to work on one for our local streets, and for those, when we plow, we have 23 different routes and 23 different small truck routes built in within them. So that equaled 46 different routes, and then we would have 2 drivers per route. So we would have 92 entries just for our local roads, and that is if everybody finished them and we didn't have any mixing between shifts and things. So Dave created that. All we had to do then is put in the truck, put in the employee, and put in the amount of time they spent within each route. Then when we close that work order, all of that detail gets populated into Cityworks, saving a tremendous amount of time and data entry. The same was also done for our solid waste route. We have 6 residential routes. We have compost routes also in those residential routes. And then we have 3 front load routes and a downtown route and a downtown recycling route. So we had several things. We're doing the exact same data entry almost every single day for those. So it was perfect solution. We have a pick list, put in our drivers, put in the truck, put in the time spent in each route, close that, automatically populates our work order. So, these have just been a tremendous time saver, and the accuracy of the data that we're getting now doesn't compare to what we used to get. Thank you for taking the time to listen to API Automagic, the Excel to Cityworks story of time savings.